Welcome back to Front Row Noles, and we go back to the Earl Bacon Agency hotline. The Earl Bacon Agency, ensuring your future together. It's a big weekend for the softball Seminoles, and we are really pleased to bring one of the all-time greats to the airwaves today in the history of Florida State softball, and that is Jessie Warren, who's been the star third baseman, the ACC Player of the Year, and really the anchor of this team. Jessie, how are you?
I am fantastic.
You have super regionals this weekend, and we will talk about this year's team, and you overcame some adversity with an injury and whatnot, but when you look back to a year ago at this time, it was such a abrupt, the end is always abrupt, and I know it was really devastating for the team to lose to LSU in the Super. So the fact that it lines up that you get a chance to avenge that, and granted, it'll take, some serious competitive nature from you guys because they're a good team, but the fact that you get that chance, what does that mean to you and the team for this weekend?
You know, it's a great opportunity for us to go out there and just compete and play the game of softball that we love. I think last year, it was heartbreaking and it sucked. But, this is a new team, a new year. We can do a lot different things than last year's team can do. And I think we're all excited for this weekend and just to go out there and compete.
Jessie, along that lines, and Tom and I talk about this all the time, a lot of coaches and even some players do not like to talk about revenge. They like to talk about redemption. What's your mindset as you go up against LSU here for a second consecutive time?
Like I said, just, taking advantage of the opportunity to just go out there and play. And we try to focus on ourselves and stay within ourselves rather than who's in the other dugout and who we're playing, because when we do that, we're successful with ourselves. So I think instead of focusing on who we're playing, just focusing on ourselves and going out there and doing what we know how to do best. And like I said, just playing the game we love and going out there and competing.
Let me give some context for some of our listeners who may not be familiar with Florida State softball. We're talking with Jessie Warren, who's been an All-ACC first-team selection for 4 consecutive years. And, Keith, you and I will expound upon that later, but that's a pretty short list of Florida State athletes who've done that. She's the career home run and RBI leader in ACC history and nearing the top 10 in both those categories in NCAA history. That said, Jessie, you went through, and I don't know if you were injured at any point earlier in your career, but you had a broken foot this year, which you played, you shut it down for a few games, but then you played basically, it looked like, because I called some of the games, like you were on one foot for a while. So how much did that derail you in the middle of your season?
Yeah, it sucked. I tried jumping over a catcher in one of our games and came down on my foot wrong and cracked a small bone in my foot. And I couldn't play for a while. I had to kind of rest it, but it's my senior year, so I didn't want to have to sit out too long and not be able to play and kind of regret it later on in life. So I kind of just sucked it up a little bit and dealt with some of the pain that I could deal with and, just went out there and competed to the best of my abilities and was kind of successful at it. So I just kept doing what I was doing and just staying mentally tough. And, the coaches and the girls helped with that too. And especially shout out to Eunice Hernandez for keeping me in the training room and doing all she could do with my ankle to get me back out there healthy.
Well, what Tom's trying to say, Jessica, is that a one-footed Jessica Warren is better than a two-footed any other player. That's what he's trying to say.
Debatable.
This has been talked about as your career has gone on, but you grew up playing baseball, and I don't know, with the prevalent, there was a period before your day when fast pitch softball wasn't as prevalent as what it is now at all the high schools, especially in Florida on the East Coast. But in your situation, you played baseball, I feel like, a lot longer, maybe before you moved over to softball, and there was an f.s.u. connection there too, because I think Sherman Johnson was on your team, or his dad was the coach. Just elaborate on that experience and talk us through when you ultimately made the switch over to softball.
So I played baseball from around 3 to probably, I would say, 12. And then from 12 to 14, I played both baseball and softball. And then once I got into high school, it was kind of the line was drawn. It was time to just focus on softball. But I didn't know too much about, college softball. Like I was more of, I want to go to Omaha. I want to play in Omaha. And but yes, Coach Sherman Johnson Jr. and Brandon Johnson played baseball here at Florida State. And Coach Sherman knew the coaching staff through the baseball people, and just I came to a couple camps, and they saw what they saw and they liked what they saw, and they ended up offering me my sophomore summer of high school, and it was a no doubter for me. I knew this is where I wanted to come. This was my dream school, and I was just so happy that they gave me the opportunity to play here, and it was probably the best decision of my life to come here to Florida State.
What's the most memorable part of your Florida State experience thus far?
It actually has nothing to do with me, but when we went to the World Series my sophomore year, Callie Harrod was just struggling so hard at the plate, and our coaches talked so much about process and trusting the process, and she never gave up with that. And when the time came, it was do or die, and she tied the game up in the semifinals national championship game, and we ended up going into extra innings against Auburn, and we ended up losing, but it was probably the most coolest thing that I could have experienced from a teammate and from that team.
You mentioned the World Series. You mentioned Omaha previously. I have to think that the World Series in Oklahoma City was number one on your to-do list for this year. So what's it going to take to finish off LSU?
Yeah, just doing what we do best, going out there, competing every pitch, and staying within ourselves and playing Florida State softball, and, just playing for the girls that stand to the left and right of you and not playing for yourself. And when you give up the me for the we, it's pretty cool stuff happens. So I think just go out there and, play the game we love and just play it with fun and do it for the little girl that started the game when she was 4 or 5 and just go from there. But just have fun with it all around.
Well, you mentioned the little girl. I'm the old guy of this duo in that I go back to Coach Joanne Graff coming to Florida State. I come back to when this game was slow pitch, not fast pitch. I come back to when Darby Cottle won the equivalent of the Heisman for women's athletics as a softball player. How familiar are you, and how much does your group talk about the history of this great program at Florida State?
We have a lot of alumni come back and talk to us and just share what they've experienced compared to what we've experienced. And, we're compared to what they've went through, we're spoiled women out here at Florida State. They're great people, and Joanne Graff is an amazing person, and I've talked to her a couple times. I've met Cottle and Jessica Vanderlinden and all of those great names that have played and passed through Florida State history, and it's just pretty cool to see what they've experienced compared to what I've experienced. And it's very humbling, too, to know the differences between back then and now. And it's awesome when they come and talk to us, though, and we love to know the knowledge and the history behind everything that we're going through. So,
all right, 78 career home runs as we talk with Jessie Warren. How many of those are inside the park home runs?
None.
So, Tom, that is not a fair question.
Well, it's a setup to the next question, which is when the ball got misjudged in right field last week off the bat of Carson Gordon, did you in the dugout think at that split second that might finish it, or were you just thinking extra bases?
Oh, me and Anna Shona were talking about it. It's pretty funny because we were joking and saying, if that was us, we'd still be standing on second base right now. We have a lot of speed on this team, and when she dove for the ball down the line and missed it, I knew Carson was going to come home. She's really quick, and she's very athletic, and coming around second and literally the dugout, I think everybody in the complex was waving her home, and, we just wanted to win that game so bad, and because that's huge first 2 games. If you win those 2 games, I think the statistics say most of the time you move on to supers, and, Auburn's a great program, but when T.O. was waving Carson home, we were all out of the dugout, already at home plate, in the middle of the play. I'm glad the catcher didn't miss that ball because I'm pretty sure it probably would have hit me right in my face. I was lined up directly in line with him. But it was awesome. We knew she was going to score, and that was just an amazing walk-off for us and for Carson.
Congratulations on the success, both team and individual. Best of luck this weekend. And I'll do now what I did before we started this, now that we're on the air. I'll officially apologize to you for calling you Jessie Burroughs at times this year, even though I was working with Jessica Burroughs during one of those broadcasts. Jessie Warren, one of the all-time greats at FSU. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Go Noles.
All right, and we wish her the best of luck. 78 homers and 261 runs driven, and that's doing something. That's hashtag do something.
That's gaudy. That's just gaudy statistics.
Yeah, we mentioned it last week on the show. If you line them up against J.D. Drew and Buster Posey, she's got more.
Well, another thing, we talk sometimes about, those of us that were in athletics and then we get out into our early adulthoods, we play, slow pitch adult league softball, and we look at the ladies and we look at what they do and in the fast pitch, and we often think, well, I could do that. Well, I tried one time. I'll be the first to tell you. I tried. That ball rising is so much different than anything you saw in baseball. And even though it's a larger ball and it's not coming at 90, you do the metrics and everything, and I couldn't hit it. I just couldn't hit it. I am not able to do it.
Yeah,
period.
Well, it may not be the same velocity, but they're a little bit closer, too. So
I'm just saying, you multiply all the things with the big numbers?
Why don't you do that in the break? Yeah.
I'll just use the big numbers and just say it's fast.
We'll come back, continue to talk about what's going on in the Diamond. We'll switch to the baseball side of the ledger right after this on Front Row Noles.